Right. Good afternoon, Jai Hind. Good to see the attrition having reduced. Some people have actually come back from their slumber after lunch. So good to see that. Pakistan का नाम ही काफी होता है normally to bring back people. No. I must compliment Major Gaurav Arya on this entire program. But in this particular session, for having got a collection of such great heavyweights here, very correctly, what Major Ali said was absolutely correct. Their competence speaks for itself. The fact that they are here and the fact that this subject is being discussed for 45 minutes or so in a panel discussion has one special significance. In the last 10 days, I must have written, I know, so much on Pakistan, primarily trying to focus on one thing, that look, we still have an adversary called Pakistan. Lots and lots of people in India tend to think everything is now northern borders, everything is China, all the problems are in the maritime zone, etc. While you don't realize that an imploding Pakistan, a weak Pakistan, a collapsing Pakistan is the worst thing that can happen to us. And therefore, inclusion of this panel was very, very important in this discussion, in this whole session. Now, we've got just 45 minutes with us to do it. I intend to break it up by giving 5 minutes each to our very eminent speakers to make their points. They will be able to make 2 or 3 points and emphasize on that. Thereafter, I have a set of questions for them, about 1 or 2 sharp questions for them. And I intend to wrap it up with 10 minutes available to the audience if we can afford to do that. Because at the end of the day, on Pakistan, unless you have a Q&A session, an interactive session with the audience, is actually incomplete. So we'll start with Mr. Tilak Devashar on my left immediately here. And I shall be a very, very strict timekeeper. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I audible? Okay. So let me begin with a fundamental question that I posed in my first book, Pakistan Quoting the Abyss, that was published in December 2016. And I had asked, is Pakistan then ungovernable, or is its leadership incapable of governing Pakistan? Now, the question was relevant then, it's even much more relevant today. The thrust of my argument was the acronym that I had coined, that is the WEEP factor, standing for water, education, economy and population. And I demonstrated that Pakistan faced an emergency situation in each of these 4 areas a decade ago. And today, it should have been in the Disaster Management Board, but there were no signs that it was. And these are the long-term elements that eat the innards of a society and of a country, and if not rectified in time, would lead the country closer to the abyss. Now, if you add this WEEP factor analysis with what is happening in Pakistan today, which is the current situation. Now, you all know what is happening in Pakistan, so I will not go into the details, but just a thumbnail sketch. There is a political crisis with constitutional implications. There is a judicial crisis and a confrontation between the judiciary and the legislature and the government. There is the worst ever floods that Pakistan faced. There is a security crisis with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and with the Taliban in Afghanistan. And there is this massive economic crisis. And the atta, people getting killed to get atta, is the worst manifestation of this. Now you add this to the WEEP crisis and you know what is happening in Pakistan today. So where does all this impact us? The second part of the question, how does it impact us? A couple of points that I'd like to mention in the short time that is available. First, in dealing with a toxic state like Pakistan, we have to monitor what happens there very, very carefully. You cannot let your eyes off the ball. And what is happening, we must wargame both the best case scenario and the worst case scenarios. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening in too many think tanks in Delhi and other parts of India. We must do that. Second, our analysts and thinkers will have to get out of their complacent, conventional wisdom mode that Pakistan has survived such crises in the past and therefore it will survive these crises also. It may. I'm not disputing the fact that it may survive. But we have to be nimble in our analysis and we have to be prepared for what may or may not come. And that is the kind of advanced preparation that I think we must need to do. Third, the normal Pakistan playbook in dealing with domestic crisis is to shoot its way out of trouble. Because a hungry Pakistan and a radicalized Pakistan will be a very angry Pakistan. And this anger, potential anger which can implode, will not be contained by the security establishment in Pakistan. And therefore, the playbook is to divert it outwards. And outward means diverted towards India. You will find that from August 2019, there has been a series of drones that have been dropping IEDs, arms, ammunition and currency on Punjab and in Kashmir, trying to rekindle the Khalistan situation. Attack in Rajouri. So we cannot let our guard down, and our security grid has to be strong. Fourth, Pakistan will get even more dependent on China, and we need to monitor that as the situation starts to deteriorate even further. Fifth, what is happening in Pakistan, it is unlikely that the government over there would expend any political capital on Indo-Pak relations. And therefore, the focus has to be on management of relations to ensure that relations don't deteriorate even further. And finally, there are two diametrically opposed trends that are happening. There are some people in India who feel that given the crisis in Pakistan, now is the time to push an aggressive policy towards it. Strangely, on the other side, in Pakistan, there are some writers, including armed forces personnel, diplomats, and a lot of vloggers who say this is the time to have better relations with India, especially in terms of trade. Now, how this dynamic plays up will be very interesting to watch. To conclude, and to answer the question that I had posed in my book, Pakistan has become a country whose challenges seem to be beyond the capacities of the current leadership to be able to resolve. The current leadership neither has the vision nor the ability to do so. And therefore, we have to be very careful of what the leadership does, how he does it, and where does Pakistan land up in the next 3 months, 6 months, and a couple of years down the road. Thank you. I'll stop now.
Thank you very much.
I think I've stuck to time.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me at the back? Right. Thank you very much. You stuck to your time. Absolutely. Very disciplined. The reference from Mr. Devashar's excellent intervention, which I would like to focus on. Read an article which has appeared yesterday in Pakistan by an Air Force officer called Shehzad Chaudhry. It will actually amaze you. Shehzad Chaudhry is a man I used to meet the last 10 years. He was so aggressive towards India. But off late, and with this latest article yesterday, it is all nothing but peace that they are talking. So is there something happening in Pakistan which we are not being able to put our pulse to? While there's a terrorist attack in Punch, at the same time there are people talking peace. Where does this whole thing stand actually today? Over to Mr. Rajiv Sinha. No introductions required, an expert on Pakistan, been on it for many, many years.
Hello. I think the reality of Pakistan has been very clearly exposed and explained by Mr. Deveshar. But the problems are not new, but the new thing is that they've all hit Pakistan at the same time. That is an important thing. We see a level of polarization in Pakistan that has never been seen before. Earlier, the judiciary and the army or the establishment worked in tandem with each other, and each would support each other. Today, that relationship stands broken. So, in case, and that has created a constitutional crisis. So, in case there's a problem, then there'll be no constitutional fig leaf for any unconstitutional act as earlier, as it can be explained by the doctrine of necessity. Further, as far as the politics are concerned in Pakistan, even if there are elections held tomorrow or the next month, I don't think any political party has come up with what then, thereafter. And I don't think, as I pointed out, anybody has the capacity to take Pakistan out of the mess that it is there today. So we'll only see the problem continuing and the can being kicked down the lane further. Then there was this reference to, indirect reference to religion. That is true. A radicalized Pakistan is going to be a very angry Pakistan. And where will their anger go? It's going to come eastwards. And I think all political parties are equally guilty in maintaining and using religion. The PTI talks of Riyasat-e-Madina. I don't even know they understand what that means or what can we do with it. Similarly, PMLN, it talks of removing interest rates under Islamic banking systems. How can they do that? Where is the money for it? How will they manage it? No idea, but to earn brownie points, they all use religion. Then on the side of the army, in Pakistan, it's an established wisdom that the army has a legitimate supervisory role in politics. It is a cementing factor, but unusually, it is facing criticism from and also differences amongst officers, but is not split down the middle, which is the reason why it's still there. And the problem is the Pakistan Army today is supporting a government that is not able to do anything and is not willing to support a government which has support. Because that government which comes out, which wants elections, if it holds Punjab, then obviously the situation will become very difficult. What does that imply for India? I think the most important thing for us is we have to manage to war game both the worst case as mentioned by Devesh and the best case scenario, and monitor the developments very, very closely so that we don't miss any of the commas or the full stops, and ensure that we are prepared for any action. And as we have seen, the Pakistan state is always using non-state actors with deniability. So that aspect is going to continue irrespective. Even if we open trade with Pakistan, I don't think we let our guard down. We need to be careful and manage the relationship. And that's a key element in Indo-Pak relations. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent. A very short, sharp intervention here, which focused on the internal aspects, the ungovernability of Pakistan and the likely effects of that manifesting on us. Sushant Sareen is a long-standing critic. He's the man who actually virtually coined the term "im the dim." Imran Khan being called the dimwit, im the dim. And, he loves using it on television all the time. I'm not sure whether he would like to meet Imran Khan in a dark alley anywhere in the future ever.
You should ask him if he would like to meet me, sir.
But he's the man you see him on a more aggressive, more offensive kind of a posture that India needs to take. That's been his USP mostly on television. So we'd love to hear from him what he thinks of Pakistan today in this current state of weakness, and what should India be looking at, doing about it. Over to you.
Okay, just by way of clarification, I didn't take a hard line. I wasn't born with a hard line on Pakistan. I actually evolved into it. I was, believe it or not, somebody who thought peace was possible until better sense dawned on me. And I don't think that is possible anymore. But I think it's very clear for India, rather than bothering about what's happening in Pakistan, in the first instance, I think we should be very clear about our own capabilities and our own capacities. No matter what happens in Pakistan, there's very little we can do to save Pakistan from itself. And I don't think we should do anything to try and even attempt that. Because there is this Mother India complex in India that we must save Pakistan, and I don't think we can do it even if we wanted to. Coming from that standpoint, I think what is happening in Pakistan today is perfect for us. Frankly, there is no best scenario and worst case scenario. There's only a bad scenario, a worst scenario, and a worst scenario. Unfortunately, in Government of India, and I'm speaking in the company of three of people who've been in government, the worst case scenario is so horrible that nobody in the government even wants to think of it. And their attitude is deny that this will never happen, which is okay. But I think a weak Pakistan is a far better option for India than a strong Pakistan. An unstable Pakistan is a far better option for India than a stable Pakistan. A poor Pakistan is a much, much better thing for India than a rich and a prosperous Pakistan. And please perish the thought of a friendly Pakistan. That is, in simple terms, it's an impossibility. The voices of reason which you hear from across the border, I've been seeing them for the last 30 years. I can assure you. You all occasionally have these voices of reason coming from there. They don't count for anything. They don't make policy out there. And these same voices will take a 180-degree turn the moment the time suits them. So my point is that you have a Pakistan where you want it. The question is, how are you going to protect yourself from whatever happens in Pakistan? And that is an endless war, whether you like it or not. Anybody who thinks that you can kiss and make up and there'll be peace for all times to come, there might be interregnums of peace to be followed by war again. And I don't necessarily mean an all-out conventional war, but since there are a whole lot of service people out here, what you are into is an endless war. And you have to be mentally and psychologically be prepared, both as a country and as a security force, for an endless war in Pakistan. Now, whether you are fighting that endless war against a disparate group of people across the Radcliffe line, or you are fighting it against proxies of the Pakistani state, is a matter of detail. And we can come to that later. But I think that is where we are entering, and that is the war of the future, whether we like it or we don't like it.
Thank you, Sushant. Normally you're not as disciplined as this, because I find in most seminars you would have probably taken off and carried on. But it just shows.
Sir, last night you warned me that I don't have much time, so I
Thank you, but thank you. Very, very sharp, very good intervention. If I may start the round of questions to them, short, sharp ones. We haven't heard the term TTP so far in this discussion. And that's the flavor of the times today. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which has suddenly come back into reckoning. Last 2 days, lots happening on the Western Front, lots and lots of attacks taking place, etc. Is the situation internal security? This is my question to Mr. Devashir. Is this internal security situation in Pakistan such today that it is taking it into the abyss even further? And with the experience of Operation Zarb-e-Azb 2014 to 18, is it likely that there is going to be another operation which is going to be launched against the TTP now? If that happens, should we be sitting comfortable on the line of control in India, that nothing much can happen to Kashmir, nothing much can happen on our side here, because they are far too committed to internal security in Pakistan? To you?
I think those two need to be divorced. First, on the TTP. You see, the TTP is doing to Pakistan what Pakistan had done to the US. That is, they gave Taliban shelter and sanctuary in Pakistan and used to send them out to attack the US. Today, the TTP has got shelter in Afghanistan and they are coming in and attacking Pakistan. The reason why Pakistan is hesitant to carry out an operation against the TTP like Zarb-e-Azb is that they have got the hinterland and they don't have the US drone strikes. The US drone strikes took out the top leadership of the TTP, whether it was Naik Muhammad or Baitullah Masood, all of them. So what do they do with an operation? If they're going to Afghanistan to attack the TTP camps, it's going to be a long war of attrition with the Taliban, and who have got a whole host of suicide bombers, and I think there'll be mayhem in Pakistan. So Pakistan is really between a rock and a hard place. What does it do with the Taliban? And let's not forget, the Taliban have not recognized the Durand line. They have said it's a disputed line and they even uprooted part of the fence. So Pakistan is on the defensive even there. So, and I think, yes, to answer your question, the TTP situation is a serious situation. To a large extent, Pakistan is to blame because they started talks with them, which allowed the TTP to regroup. They released a large number of prisoners who came down into Swat. So now the TTP is a fairly established. They don't have any territorial, they haven't declared any free areas, but it's definitely over there. On Kashmir, I think Pakistan has that capability because these are not conventional troops. These are non-state actors. So, you have one incident here and one incident there, basically to keep you on your toes and also to tell the people that the insurgency is not dead. So, irrespective of what happens with the TTP and the Taliban, you cannot let your eyes off the ball as far as Kashmir is concerned and as far as the security grid is concerned.
That means, in other words, whatever be the situation in Pakistan, a one-off strike in Kashmir to remind the Awam, to remind the world, to remind the population in Pakistan itself, will continue in some form or the other. That brings us back to Afghanistan as such. You see, Rajiv, the three issues of Pakistan, main security issues of Pakistan, which have always been identified are, one is Kashmir on the eastern front, one is Afghanistan on the western front, and the third is the internal security issue. Now, of late we are seeing that the western front and internal security are becoming dire challenges for Pakistan today. Tell us a little bit about the new Afghanistan angle. The Taliban having turned 180 degrees around, the Durand line issue being questioned suddenly today, the support to the TTP. What exactly is the Taliban looking for in AFPAC, which is going to affect the Pakistan security adversely?
The Pakistan brought Taliban back into Afghanistan, and there were celebrations, as you've seen with Faiz Hamid sitting in a hotel and sipping a cup of coffee or tea with there. So that was a celebration. But unfortunately, the celebrations turned horribly wrong. Taliban is not doing what Pakistan or the GHQ expect them to do. They have turned the wisdom upside down. They've provided shelter to the TTP. Despite Pakistani pressure, they have not denied them sanctuary. In fact, they are there along the border, though there's, of course, stray reports of some TTP members being shifted into the hinterland, but that's not major. The other thing is that the Taliban now understand how to use pressure and get concessions out of Pakistan too. So, as you mentioned, the TTP has been allowed to operate. It moves across the border into Pakistan, can hit anywhere with impunity anywhere in Pakistan, as they have recently demonstrated with their operations across. That they can hit at will at a place and point of their time and time of their choosing. The second is the fact that the Durand line is something that's not been recognized. The Taliban have just not talked about it. They do not want to recognize it. In fact, there have been clashes between the Taliban and the Pakistani army across the Durand line, where the Pakistani army has been trying to kind of move in further into Pakistan, into Afghan territory and occupy land, which has been rebuffed. So that is another aspect. Another aspect we must look into is the sharing the Kabul River water, which is another very, very, very important factor. We must understand that Pakistan is a water deficit state and gradually becoming even a bigger water deficit state. And if the Taliban do build dams across the Kabul River, the flow of water will further reduce. That will only create more friction between the two sides. So yes, the role the Taliban plays will have a major impact on on the two front situation that Pakistan will face. One is the eastern side, and the other is the western side. So to avoid that, Pakistan was hoping that if we get Taliban in the west, our western front will be quiet, but that's not happened. But interestingly, along the LOC, the ceasefire is held so far, which is an interesting development. I don't see the ceasefire being violated anytime in the short term. I don't know the medium long term. I would not like to look into that. But yes, we need to understand that Pakistan will not give up the use of its non-state actors to remind the world that Kashmir issue is a major issue for it. And the Awam also, that Kashmir issue exists and Pakistan will continue to support it, directly or indirectly, however it looks at it. So yes, the fact that Taliban have come to Afghanistan in Kabul is a major security concern for Pakistan today.
Thank you for that. In other words, would you say that, this is just a follow-up question for you. Would you say that the deteriorating relationship between the Taliban and the Pakistan leadership is actually leading to a dilution of the strategic depth which Pakistan always has sought from Afghanistan?
Well, let's not use the word deteriorating relationship. I don't think it's a difficult relationship where both sides are pressing their own interests in order to secure their own interests. As far as the strategic depth is concerned, I think it's very clear now in the manner in which the Taliban have been behaving that I don't think Pakistan can take the Taliban for granted in terms of what it wants to do and how it wants to do. So the strategic depth is in question, definitely, at this point in time.
Thank you. Sushant, a follow-up from that. What is the larger Taliban game? Is there an ideological aspect to it? Because some analysts feel that the Taliban is actually looking towards the domination of the entire AFPAC. Now with the Americans having gone, not likely to come back in 20 years, even if there's a major incident, Pakistan in dire straits economically, everything for internal security angle, etc. This is a golden opportunity for the Taliban to actually show itself manifested as the actual leader of the entire area from an Islamic caliphatic angle. What is your comment on that?
I think it kind of links up with the question of strategic depth. It was always a misnomer that Pakistan will get strategic depth in Afghanistan. Actually, it's the Taliban who've got strategic depth in Pakistan. And their strategic depth has only increased in Pakistan. But I think the Taliban ideology is nothing if it's not an expansionist ideology. It always was. It was this topi which the Americans wore on their head and on a lot of other people's head, which they put to say that, no, the Taliban are, these are these Afghan nationalists who will only Afghan-centric. They have no ambition beyond Afghanistan. That was utter nonsense. I would use some much more colorful language, but this is not the place for it. But the fact of the matter remains that it was all Islamist ideologies are expansionist ideologies, right? And General Saab, you know this better than anybody else. You've studied this a lot more than most other people have. So what the Taliban, but they will go about it in a very systematic manner. They will not do it in the way the Islamic State tried it. They have already got a state, which is Afghanistan, and they are going to continue to spread their influence wherever they can, following that old adage that, you have the watches, we have the time. So this is a millenarian ideology, millenarian philosophy, which is only going to expand. Pakistan is ripe for the picking as far as these people are concerned. They have the networks out there. They have a weak state to contend with. They have a lot of people who have already been brainwashed into thinking, look, in Pakistan, a lot of people say that, the Taliban are not bad guys. We don't agree with how the Taliban do things, but technically they're not such bad guys. So there is that ambiguity inside Pakistani heads as far as how they perceive the Taliban. So it is a country ripe for the picking. And this is a country where now the elite consensus has broken down. This is a country where there is a crisis of the state taking place. So it is natural for them to expand into Pakistan. Similarly, if you look at all the terror groups or insurgent groups from across the region who have been given sanctuary in Afghanistan, whether it's from the Tajikistan, whether it's from Uzbekistan, whether it's the Chinese groups, the Pakistanis, of course, including some Iranian Sunni extremist groups, right? The Jaish-ul-Adl and others. Now, for the Iranians, for example, if there can never be a meeting ground between a Shiite Iran and a hardline Sunni Taliban. There will be tactical accommodation, there will be those adjustments, but there can never be peace between them. It's impossible. It hasn't happened for 1500 years. It's not going to happen now. So I think this will continue to expand. And I think that is what the bigger picture in front of India going, not in India, everything is the next 3 months when the next election happens. But if we were to look a little further down the line, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, then I think we should factor in these particular elements in our national security strategy and then take countermeasures for that.
Thank you very much for that. That was excellent, actually. In fact, our thinking is so restricted that we look at the LOC or what's happened on the Punch-Bimbergali road or something like that. These tactical manifestations will continue forever, every 6 months, a year or so. It is this larger picture. And therefore, a follow-up question on that. Do you think that the next cycle of global terror, which is waiting to happen, at the moment global terrorism is on the back foot completely, it could happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, anything. Is this the area from where the next cycle of global terror will emerge? I particularly ask this because the vacant spaces in Afghanistan and apparently vacant spaces in Pakistan all seem to be showing as if they are getting more and more occupied by these elements.
Well, this has been the epicenter of terrorism even during the first cycle. The whole global terror, war on terror started from this region. Very often people forget that when the Taliban took over, and again, never trust the Americans or the Brits when they write on these issues because they talk utter nonsense most of the time. But if you look at what happened, every terror group from the Philippines to Morocco had a presence in the AFPAC region. They would all carry out their operations in their various theaters whether it was in East Africa, it was in the Sahel region, it was, you name the part of the world, but they all found their origins in the AFPAC region. They all went out from here. They all, originated from this region. That was the first wave. The second wave is bound to happen out here, because can you tell me any other safe haven for most of these guys? And when you link it up with what Mr. Deveshwar writes very eloquently in his book, the Pashtunwali culture, that you will give refuge to whoever comes out there, especially if he is an Islamist who is running away from quote unquote persecution, then this does become terror central once again. And this is the safest of safe havens, because who's going to come in out here again? Everybody is run with their tail between their legs, and nobody wants to come back here again. So this is bound to be the epicenter of the next wave of terrorism, which we are already seeing the green shoots of.
Thank you. Thank you very much. To Mr. Deveshwar, obviously, we can't have a discussion on Pakistan without involving the Pakistan Army, the great Pakistan Army. Lots and lots of things are being spoken about today about the Pakistan Army. For the first time, we are finding divisions within the army which are being spoken about. Otherwise, the Pakistan Army is always known to be a very united kind of a force. We suddenly find that General Asim Munir is being harangued, kept to a side. Perhaps the influence of Faiz Hamid, the ex-DG-ISI, both are DG-ISIs incidentally. Faiz Hamid has a following within the Pakistan Army itself. There are regimental followings which are taking place. Is this the first manifestations of a realistic division of ranks within the Pakistan Army that we are looking at? And if this happens, what will be the political effect within Pakistan?
Atta, I don't buy that. A lot of it is PTI propaganda, trolling Asim Munir, saying he's a retired lieutenant general, should not be chief, and people are saying Faiz Hamid. Look, the Pakistan Army, in many respects, is like the Indian Army. The chain of command, the discipline holds. The army chief is the man in uniform, he is the chief. Faiz Hamid is retired. A retired officer will command loyalty, but he will not command loyalty of troops who go out and shoot people. So I don't buy this kind of theory of division. Yes, there can be differences of opinion. Imran Khan has had a huge impact, especially on the families of serving army officers, on the veterans. But whether it leads to any kind of division, when we talk about division in the army, we're talking about disruption of the chain of command or the integrity of the army. Sorry, I don't see that. I don't see that happening. There can be differences of points of view. The Corps Commanders Conference issues are hotly debated. But once a decision gets taken, the army chief, everybody falls in line with the army chief. I don't see any kind of Faiz Hamid or anybody else trying to pull the rug from any army chief. So I don't have that.
Given the fact that what you are saying is maybe completely right, that it's a unified army that you are seeing there, what is the Rubicon? Which is the line which divides the Pakistan Army from stepping across and getting hold of things in Pakistan? Because they are very reluctant at the moment. They don't want to be seen moving into a failing situation and failing even further. So given the fact that Pakistan really has not too many political options at the moment, is there a fine dividing line at which you think the Pakistan Army will finally have to take a decision to step in?
Yeah. You see, a decade ago or 2 decades ago, the army would have stepped in. You see, the very famous, what Ayub Khan told his son, Gaurav Ayub, he says, you've served in the army. Once the army chief makes up his mind to stage a coup, only God above can prevent him. So any army chief would have gone ahead and staged a coup. But the reason he can't do it today are several. Given the conditions in Pakistan today, what is it that the army will bring to the table to pull Pakistan out of the economic morass? The army doesn't have that kind of expertise. So that is one. Yet at the same time, calling itself the defenders of Pakistan's ideological and territorial frontiers, I think if situation deteriorates to the extent that there is street violence, which the police cannot handle, if the PTI comes out in large numbers, if the judiciary as it is, the Chief Justice is way out of line as far as the Constitution is concerned. Can you imagine a situation where he preempts the legislature passing a bill? He says even if the bill comes into existence, it is stayed. This never happened, but there is no kind of preemptive jurisdiction in the army. So if things deteriorate to that extent, so if the crisis deepens in respects, constitutional, in terms of street in terms of law and order, it is then that the army, everybody will look only to the army as the last standing institution which can save Pakistan. So it may happen. I don't see this happening at the moment because the army will not be able to govern Pakistan, because they just don't have the expertise to govern this. But just one other point, if I can, the question is, you see, also let's not forget the ISKP and the Al-Qaeda are incubating. The UN reports on the Taliban Sanctions Committee have said several times, and even the MI6 or MI5 chief said that the ISKP is now ready to launch attack outside of Afghanistan. So I think, yes, it will be terror central too, and it will emanate from Afghanistan. The point that Sushant is reinforcing his point, because the Taliban have so far not demonstrated the full capacity to either act against the ISKP deliberately, or they are incapable of acting against the ISKP. So that's the thing.
I'll come back to you, Rajiv. This issue to Sushant, because you've spoken on this quite often. Would you like to take on this particular aspect?
I'm a little skeptical about all this blowing up of ISKP. There's no pun on the word blowing up of ISKP, but I think it's been exaggerated. I've always believed it. I'm not saying it's not a potent organization. I'm not saying it does not have networks. But, and when a British tells me that, look, ISKP is really dangerous and has got these capabilities, I am very deeply suspicious, because knowing what the British operate, it seems to me they're making a case for recognition of the Taliban. And that is why because I haven't seen any real evidence of the ISKP ability to hit beyond some parts of Afghanistan, actually most of Afghanistan, and for that matter, parts of Pakistan. Where again, for reasons very well known, because there's been a lot of overlapping between the cadres of these guys. In some ways, the Al-Qaeda seems to be a far more potent organization at this point in time, in terms of its footprint, in terms of its propaganda, a far more potent organization, and which is continuing to grow silently under the radar than when you compare it to the ISKP. So I am a little skeptical about the ISKP's abilities to strike beyond the AFPAC region. And when the Brits tell me that they have this capability, I'm even more suspicious.
Rajiv, to you the last question. Of late, we've been once again a lot of revisiting of Bajwa's famous old statements. You remember, in fact, Sushant has also spoken yesterday. I was seeing one of your YouTube videos. You were talking about the Bajwa doctrine, the very famous press conference which he had given, media conference which he had given in Rawalpindi at one time. So, a lot of emphasis coming back to say that Bajwa was the one who always spoke about the weakness of the Pakistan army, its incapability to take on the Indian army, also his overall working towards peace, some back channel messages being sent to the Indian army leadership and things like that. What do you make of this? Today, do you think in the state of weakness that Pakistan is, was there any truth to this? Is there any truth to it today? And is it likely to manifest? Is this some kind of an outreach that the back channel elements in Pakistan are trying to make to India?
The Bajwa doctrine is nothing but the Pak army doctrine. It's been named the Bajwa doctrine because it's propounded in his time. I think Bajwa was a realist in more ways than one, a rational real man who kind of understood the limitations of the Pak army. And when he spoke to Hamid Mir and 25 other journalists, he wasn't trying to tell them that the army is incapable or is not, cannot, or the army systems are not working. What he's trying to say is, listen, today we are in a mess. We are in an economic crisis which we need to get out of to progress and take the country forward. So it was in that sense that he meant that. He was not trying to say that the army is finished, we can't fight, and we have to make peace with India. No, I don't think he ever meant that at all. Yes, he probably meant that a certain air defense system was not working, or a certain RT system was not working, or a tank was not working, or whatever that may be. But it was not as if the army had come to an end. No, it was not that. Yes, in his time, the institutional view was, I think it's in view of the problems they face, it makes more sense to open up gradually, especially trade links with India. And that is why the back channel outreach to India, which is real. And unfortunately for Bajwa, it was Imran Khan who backed out. He thought if he went along with the idea, he'd be accused of selling Kashmir. So it was Imran who kind of let him down, and it couldn't go forward. But the point is, now the question being asked is, will Asim Munir take it forward? Now, Asim Munir has been in the hot seat for about 5 months now. 5 months now. The time required by a chief who's come into that powerful position in very trying and difficult circumstances. And in fact, his appointments also had been made controversial by the PTI in the manner it was done. So I think we must look at the fact that what did Muslim Munir do? The regular thing. He went and visited the LOC first and made a statement: the Indian Army, the Pakistani Army, is well capable of defending Pakistan, and the Kashmir is an important issue for us. Thereafter, what did he do? He, like Bajwa, also met the business community in Pakistan, assuring them, "Don't worry, we are here. We will try work things out." That's what Bajwa did too. So he has been following the institutional line of action. He has not done anything different, and I think he feels more confident today that he is more stable today. That's why, if you notice, his first foreign trip was to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, a very normal thing to do. Thereafter went to the UK, important aspect because ideologically the Pakistani elite is more Western looking than Chinese looking. They all send the children to study in the UK and the US. They don't send them to China. And thereafter, his now latest visit is to China, which came later. So I think he is following the line that the institution laid out very clearly and decently. And I think he has become more confident on himself. And if I may say, okay, no, I won't get into that. But I think, no, it'll be a wrong thing to do that. But I think Muslim Munir has become definitely more confident on himself. And in due course, we might see a further unfolding of the so-called Bajwa doctrine in due course of time.
Interesting.
Or the Munir doctrine. Which will become the Munir doctrine for you. Yes.
We've got about 3 minutes with us still. And I think I can dare to attempt getting 2 questions in. Okay, I can see one hand here straight. Yeah. After.
You are the host, you are disqualified.
Quickly. Okay, just one second. Let Major Gaurav Arya ask while the mic is with him at the moment. Then we'll come back to you. Just be ready.
So my question is to Sushant. Sushant, for very long, Pakistan has always said that, this entire geopolitical mileage that it's drawn is because it was close to Afghanistan, shares a border with Afghanistan. And whenever somebody wanted to get to Afghanistan, they had their ports, etc. Now the same thing has become a liability. Now I'm asking you, and my question comes directly from your comment that the Taliban's ideology is an expansionist ideology. Radical Islamist ideology is an expansionist ideology. Now, Srinagar is not very far from Kabul. I'm not going to ask how long do we have, but that's what I want to ask. I mean, how soon is it?
We have as long as we have the will to fight.
Yeah, that's
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You lose the will to fight tomorrow, even Amritsar.
No. I'm saying not about the will to fight. I'm saying you have a buffer in terms of Pakistan, a physical buffer.
Look, okay, so I have a problem. You can, if you're really a sucker for punishment, you can't call it a buffer. But that buffer has been responsible for the deaths, sir. Please give me the numbers you people have served in Kashmir. 30, 40, 50, 80,000 people in Kashmir? 80,000 people in Kashmir have died because of that buffer.
No, Sushant, my question is, if the Afghans decide to come east...
Yeah, how are they going to come in? Are they going to march in? They're going to do what the Pakistanis have been doing, right? Maybe up a couple of notches. So yes, you have to game that, you have to prepare for that kind of a fight. You have to take the fight into that particular territory.
Absolutely, that was my question.
You have to have punitive operations, but also remember that punitive operations do not end this problem. The Israelis have been carrying out punitive operations for the last 70 years. It hasn't really ended what is happening out there. So if we think that this thing is going to end simply because we are carrying out punitive operations, it's not going to end. Which is why when I speak about an endless war, I speak advisedly, and I actually mean it's an endless war. So you have to be prepared for it.
You have to be prepared
and you don't
for
have to bother about whether the Afghans will come in or somebody else will come in. This is your territory, you can defend it endlessly.
This is exactly what has emerged from this entire discussion. This is an endless war. And you can't start doing these kind of things of paying total focus towards a particular border in India and relegating this, thinking of redeploying your elements, etc. The next war will come to you faster than you can think. And that's the lesson which should really emerge from here. The Poonch attack should be an eye-opener for all of us, that we need not take our eyes off Kashmir at any time. Thank you. Yeah.
So same thing. I was just asking about the Afghanistan being interested in Kashmir. You clarified on that. Second point is it the time to solve the Kashmir issue? Because we have been always reacting, but not acting. So we have been always involved in what they will do. Is it not time to finish this issue? Because economic crisis, how long can Pakistan last?
May I ask you if you can qualify what you mean by finishing off the problem?
I myself is not very clear. But point is, it has been a bug in the thing, and our focus.
You know, sorry to take up the question from the panel. Your question is exactly what I was trying to answer in the last 7 days.
Sir.
And I was responding to a lot of people who were suggesting this thing itself. And I said, you tell me, do we drop a nuke there? We can finish it off. But ultimately, pragmatic, smart nations have to look at smarter ways. And those smarter ways don't come overnight. So this is a long war. As Sushant has very correctly said, this is a long war. We will have to find smarter solutions than just the idea of dropping a nuke.
And please don't look for solutions to problems of which there are none.
Thank you, sir.
I think the problem has been solved.
Yeah, the problem has been solved, the
Oh,
solution
okay.
hasn't been found.
I mean, our side is no problem. They have a problem.
Okay,
We don't have a problem.
I think we've
lady
run over
got
time, but they've got
number.
one question we can take. Okay. You'll have to get a mic quickly. Yeah.
I remember listening to this conversation, and there was a mention about water security. So what I was thinking about was about how the Kashmir issue could become more relevant in the years to come with the Indus Water Treaty and other things, and the headwaters of the Indus running through Kashmir, and of course with China being the larger hydro hegemon, could we probably look at that as something which is going to become more important when it comes to the Kashmir issue, just not looking at other aspects?
Would anyone like to?
Yeah, okay. So, you see, the Indus Water Treaty has held, despite the wars, the problems and all that, has held since the 60s till today. A lot of people say we should break the treaty, but how do you store the water of the Indus? You know, the Indus in India flows through steep gorges, and it comes out into the plains in Pakistan. How do you, so that is one aspect of it. Second, the noises of the Indus Water Treaty are coming more from Pakistan because they have messed up their water resources. You know, today, because of so many other factors, I can't go into, time it doesn't permit, but the Indus during the summer months does not even reach the sea. You know, south of Kotri, there is no Indus, because the seawater intrusion has happened. And why the Kabul River is important is that Kabul River brings in 17 million acre feet of water to the Indus at a time when the Indus itself is running dry. That allows Punjab to produce a separate crop. If dams are built, and the World Bank in India is funding those dams, if dams are built on the Kabul River, at least 4 to 5 million acre feet of water get stopped on the Kabul River. That is why Pakistan is so worried about any dam construction activity over there. So yes, Kashmir comes into the picture because these rivers all originate, or not originate, but at least flow through Kashmir. We have not used our portion of the Indus Water Treaty of water still goes through the Satluj into Pakistan. The waters, the dams that we can build in Kashmir run of the river, we are still not able to do that. And therefore that water is going through. So I think the problem also is on our side that we have not efficiently managed whatever water was allotted to us. And Pakistan has a problem because they've mismanaged whatever water was available to them.
Thank you. I think Our time is over. Unless the organizers want us to carry on.
Organizer busy in his phone, sir.
Gaurav, time is over. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.